Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, it's a different kind of episode detailing why you should join the Patreon and what I'm offering on there. But as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. So let's jump into it. Now, the big thing, and this has been an incredibly successful program for joining the Patreon. And I want to thank all of my YouTube viewers who've taken me up on this offer. A lot of people have enjoyed it and stayed past the first month. Is that I'm offering a 50% discount off your first month at all tiers using the code TylerYT. If you use that code at checkout, you'll get a 50% discount off your first month at whatever tier you choose. It only applies to the first month, and I'll be extending this offer through the end of March. Once we hit April, I think we're going to reduce it to 40% as demand picks up during the rookie season. So if you want the full 50% discount, make sure to sign up by the end of the month. You can also choose a yearly plan, which gives you 20% discount off all 12 months. So it's actually more of a discount than just 50% off 1 month. It's a built-in Patreon feature and it's permanent. You'll always be able to use it and switch from a monthly to a yearly Patreon after you sign up. And this is never going to change. There's always going to be 20% off for committing to a yearly plan because I want to reward people who stay year-round. I know that the non-in-season months are leaner in terms of content, so I want to provide this type of offer to reduce the price. Now, I'm sure you've heard me talk about the Patreon on the YouTube before. I do talk about it on every video. But what is the Patreon? If you're new here, maybe you haven't seen it. So really, it's been around a while, and it's built on three main parts: rankings, the Discord or community aspect, and direct message advice. And this offseason, I've really focused on and added a fourth main piece, the write-ups. So I'm going to go through each piece in detail, and then we'll break it down. So the first thing is the rankings. If you notice, I do not talk about, and this is going to stay this way, will not talk about specific rankings on the YouTube channel. I talk about players more just generally, market stuff, but my rankings are only for patrons. They're available at all tiers, and they include Dynasty, overall, and positional, 1QB and Superflex. Rookie ranks, I have those right now. Redraft ranks as well, which are done sometime in July and are updated throughout the redraft season. And then starts it every week throughout the year. This is, of course, something that's only available to patrons. I tried doing a thing where I do samples of the rankings on Twitter. That was a total failure. We're not going to see that anymore. So we're not going to talk about rankings. You're not going to hear about who I have ranked where outside of the Patreon. That is where you will get the actual number. I have X player ranked in X spot. That will be for patrons only, and that will not change. So that's something only for patrons. And I do have a $5 tier that just includes rankings. And then the next part, the write-ups. So as some of you may know, maybe some don't know, I used to be a writer for DLF. And, I found there were a few problems. I mean, number one, I found that, the pay per article was a little low, wasn't rising over time with things like inflation, the market, things like that. I was also finding that the constraints of traditional article written content maybe just didn't appeal to me as much as they did in the past. I don't think people have the kind of attention span that they once did. I don't think people are really reading pages and pages of content. But with that said, I still like doing written content. I enjoy writing. So I've kind of brought it back in a new form. You can call it blogging. You can call it informal written content. What is that? So kind of more, a little bit of paragraph here and there, maybe some bullet points, some just discussion of something that it's not going to work on a video, but something I still want to cover. So one example, I did a set of NFL team breakdowns earlier in the offseason. I broke down every single team I had a template. We talked about the coaching staff, general manager, potential moves they might make. Was something to keep activity going in the Patreon in January, February, when there's not much to talk about. And then I did a little position by position breakdown of the NFL Combine in write-ups. There might be other write-ups. I'm probably going to do a mock draft, rookie draft, as in pick a mock draft and then do a rookie rank draft based on that. Those things are not going to succeed on the YouTube. We tried those, but that doesn't mean I don't want to do them. So these things that I want to do, but won't work on here, are going to be behind the Patreon for Patreon content. And the write-ups, as I said, are available at all tiers. I post them both on the Patreon site and then on the Discord. So, speaking of the Discord. So, the Discord is available starting at what's now the $8 a month tier. So, there's a $5 a month tier that includes rankings and write-ups. Those are for everybody. And then the Discord starts at the $8 a month tier. Now, the Discord used to be available at the lowest tier. What I did is that I found that there are some people who just are not interested in interacting. That's fine. They just want my content. Rankings, write-ups, don't really want to talk to me. So I put a lower tier, just gives you that. No interactions. The Discord is what I would consider, though, the main product offering of the Patreon. It's the main thing that I'm offering, the main focus of the Patreon. So it's my version of community. Now, what am I doing in the Discord? So first of all, I post all the write-ups there as well. And then I also have sections for discussing the write-ups, discussing the YouTube videos, feedback for the Patreon. But essentially what the Discord is for that $8 a month. How I used to answer questions on Twitter, I'm now answering those questions in the Discord. All questions. I've raised the price to account for that. All questions. Whatever it is, I'm going to answer all questions in the Discord. Start sit, redraft, dynasty, rookie, talking about the real NFL, whatever it is. As long as it's related to fantasy football, we're going to answer all questions in the Discord. So, there's a lot of people in there. Are we going to, go through every little detail of your team? Probably not. But I wasn't going to do that on Twitter because it's hard to follow. So the Discord, basically, we're answering any questions and all of that. And we will, or I will, because I'm the only one in there as an analyst, help you with understanding strategy. I have a strategy section. I have a trade analyzing section. I have a rookie section. I have a regular just dynasty section. I have a commish questions section. So I really try to break down every part of fantasy football, not just, the more basic questions. So that's what I'm offering in the Discord. And I do think for the people who like the Discord is very valuable. So that's the Discord community part of the Patreon. Now, the last part, the direct message advice. And this is what actually the Patreon was launched on. This is the first thing that existed, was the direct message advice, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's available at tiers $12 and up. And I'll go over your team. There's options for 1, 2, 3, and unlimited teams. Almost all people are actually at 1 or unlimited. It's interesting. Almost everyone is at 1 or as many as they want. Don't find too many people signing up for 2 or 3. It does happen. But what I want to emphasize is this is not a one-time review. It's not, okay, I look at your roster and one time I'm going to give you some advice and then it's done. That's not what that is. What it is we discuss your roster over time. So it's a building relationship. We continue to talk about trades. Whenever you have a trade, I encourage you to ask me. A lot of people at the DM tiers, even people, longtime patrons, they say, well, I don't want to bother you. Opposite of what I would like. Please bother me before you do the trade, not after. After you do the trade, I can't help you. I can't undo it. But before, I'd love it if you bothered me more. Before we do the trade, I actually like doing the direct message advice the most of any part of the Patreon. So another thing is I'll help you walk through your rookie drafts, your startup drafts, redraft, leagues when applicable. Of course, I am human, so if you're doing a draft with a 90-second clock, I'm probably not going to be able to do that for you. But if you're in a slow draft, we can do the draft. That's what I have most experience with, um, especially with dynasty startup drafts and rookie drafts. Very experienced that I can deal with having 30 different messages, 30 different conversations at a time, and not getting wires crossed. I'm pretty good at that. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I'm not new. So, yeah, that's the last main piece of the Patreon content. So, the next part, I kind of have two things that are, I want to call them Patreon exclusives. The first thing, Patreon video roster breakdowns. These are sold separately at $30 each. Only patrons can buy them. So you cannot buy them unless you are already a patron. But I do the video roster breakdown of your team. This is different from the direct message advice. This is a one-time, more lengthy video. Usually it's about 15 to 20 minutes on just your team. We go through past trades, your rookie draft, how you finished previously, the league format, etc. But all patrons can view them. So even if you don't purchase one, you can still view other people's. And it's personalized content that I'm doing. But again, these are sold separately, but are only available to patrons to buy. And then the last thing is just general rookie content. I've mentioned this many times. There will not be rookie videos pre-NFL draft. Maybe the week of the NFL draft, but not before that. I tried it last year. It was a total disaster in every way on the YouTube channel. It didn't succeed. And of course, I'm going to cover rookies post-draft on the YouTube. That's not going to change. That was highly successful in 2024. People love those videos. But I want to offer more to the patrons. And honestly, it just didn't work on the YouTube. It didn't work on the YouTube to do rookie content pre-draft. So we won't be doing rookie content pre-draft. If you want my rookie takes pre-draft, those will be available for patrons only. Yeah. So that's just a content decision that I've made. And I think it's a good decision. So now lastly, I want to get into why signing up for the Patreon matters. Now, I'm not going to start with some like bullshit here that you might hear on other channels, right? I mean, I'm not going to pretend that it's about anything other than, like most things in a capitalist society, money. It's about money. So neither YouTube nor X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, especially not that, bring in any significant revenue. I think people think that those platforms like bring in money. They do not. They do not. I will give you a number. So, over 95%, and that's probably low. It's probably more like 97 or 98% of the revenue from my content creation comes from the Patreon or other premium content like the Buy Me a Coffee page, Venmo pages, or donations along those lines. So direct user contributions. Less than 1% comes from ad revenue on YouTube or X. It's less than 1%. And if you count what it costs to actually produce the YouTube videos, which are much more costly than running the Patreon, YouTube is like it's less than 1%. So it's basically nothing. So the only thing keeping this all going is the forms of premium support. The Patreon, the Buy Me a Coffee, Venmo, not really, but Patreon mostly. Patreon is itself 90 to 95% of the revenue from content creation, and then about 5% the other premium stuff, and 2-3% the ad revenue. So I'm just telling you, this is the reality. It would be great if the YouTube were 20 times as popular. For whatever reason, it's independent content. I don't think that that's going to happen. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm better as a Patreon creator than I am as a YouTuber. We all have our strengths, and we all have things maybe we're not as good at. And that's okay. But I have probably given up on the idea that I'm going to have YouTube videos with 10,000 views or 20,000 views. That probably isn't going to happen. So, and that's fine. I'm very happy with the success of the YouTube channel as it is. It does great work in what it's meant to do, which is market me to get more people to sign up for the Patreon. That's what the YouTube exists for. If there were no Patreon, there would be no YouTube. There's not going to be a universe in which I stop doing the Patreon, but continue doing the YouTube. There's totally a universe in which I stop doing the YouTube, but continue doing the Patreon. That's very possible. But the other way around is out of the question. So this is just the reality. Again, I'm not going to do the bullshit that you hear on some other places of whatever you want to say that they say. This is just what it is. So again, patreon.com/fantasy advice. The link's in the top right corner. And use that code TylerYT for 50% off your first month if you want to try it. Now, if you stayed here for this long, I'm going to give you one bonus segment. One segment where I actually talk about football. Saquon Barkley got a contract extension. He signed a 2-year, $41.2 million extension with $36 million fully guaranteed. It's on top of his existing deal, which ran through 2026, under contract through 2028. The deal sliced about $6 million off his 2025 cap number. And the wild thing about Barkley is he's 28 years old, but he's still one of the top running backs in Dynasty. Just hard to find anyone with this much future guarantee at running back. I'd caution people against overvaluing Barkley. He's still 28, comes with some injury risk. And the big thing, and to tie it back to what I was talking about with Patreon, is you can probably get an obscene overpay to sell Barkley. I can absolutely help you do that in the Patreon. One of my favorite things is workshopping trades. I love doing that. You can use my Dynasty rankings. I also have a pick value chart, which could help you value Saquon Barkley against rookie picks in order to sell him. But of course, to sell Saquon Barkley, you better get an overpay. Don't just sell him to sell him. Work to get a good deal. Because trying harder always gets you farther. And that's, again, one of the big mottos of my Patreon. Now, if you liked the video, I know it was an advertisement, 18-minute advertisement or so. But if you liked it, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Probably won't be another promo video anytime soon. Might squeeze in one more pre-NFL draft. Focusing on what I'm going to do rookie-wise on the Patreon. If you want my best fantasy advice, like I've gone through, it's available on the Patreon. Patreon.com/fantasy advice, top right corner. You can click on the link. And like I said, as a final reminder, there's a 50% discount at all tiers using the code TylerYT. But once again, I appreciate everyone for watching, sticking with me for an 18.5-minute advertisement. And I'll see you all later.